We continue our reading of Lest We Forget, a daily devotional by author George R. Knight. Today's reading, March 18, Stepping Out in Faith. And she said, "As the Lord your God lives, I have nothing baked, only a handful of meal in a jar, and a little oil in a cruse, and now I'm gathering a couple of sticks, that I may go in and prepare it for myself and my son, that we may eat it and die." And Elijah said to her, "Fear not, go and do as you have said, but first make me a little cake of it and bring it to me, and afterward make for yourself and your son." 1 Kings 17:12 and 13. And she did. But neither her meal nor her oil ran out until the famine ended. The widow of Zarephath had stepped out in faith, and God had rewarded her. Joseph Bates had several similar experiences. By the age of 36, he had accumulated enough money to retire. But by the end of 1844, he had given nearly all of it to further the Millerite message. His generosity positioned him where he also would have to step out by faith. That thought brings us back to his little books. He found that it was easier to write them than to pay to get them published. Thus it was in the fall of 1847 that he sat down to write a book of more than 100 pages with only 12.5 cents in his possessions. Just before he went to the printer, his wife asked him to buy some flour, but only having 12.5 cents, he could buy only 4 pounds. She, not knowing his circumstances, asked how it was that a man who had sailed ships around the world had come home with only a little flour. At that point, he told her 2 things. First, that he'd used all his savings, and second, that he was writing another book on the Sabbath. The news really frustrated her. After all, she hadn't even accepted the Sabbath. As Bates put it, "She does not comprehend my duty." As usual, he told Prudy that God would take care of them. And he did. Soon after that, he felt impressed to go to the post office, where he found $10 in the mail. With it, he was able to buy sufficient groceries and at least think about producing the book. But even then, he arrived at the printer without enough money, only to discover that someone else had already covered the publishing expenses. Faith or foolishness? That remains a crucial question in our day. God continues to bless those who step out in faith, and he still, at times, uses others as his agents in paying the bill. This concludes our reading today of Lest We Forget.